Going into week 12 for the Minnesota Vikings, they are 4-6. Not at all where we wanted to be at this point of the Minnesota Vikings season. We saw the schedule for the Vikings and we said, well, there's some tough games, but we should make the playoffs with the schedule. We should make a playoffs with this schedule because of how our defense is. Now, of course, our defense is very young, so that's kind of holding us back right there. But especially because of how great that Minnesota Vikings offense is. And we know how good Dalvin Cook is. We know how good Thielen is going into the season already. And we knew Kirk, coming off of last year, was going to be good. Now, of course, he's not. He's not at all. Kirk has played an awful season, but last year we figured he would be a lot better than he is right now. And then, of course, with the rise of Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith having a breakout year, Kyle Rudolph, again, still being Kyle Rudolph, we're 4-6 right now. And we have a chance at the playoffs. That's crazy. Because there is 7 teams making the playoffs now, and they're going to be doing this going forward, where 7 teams in the NFC and in the AFC are going to be making the playoffs, which I like how they did that. I mean, 14 out of 32 teams is pretty good to make the playoffs. Of course, in the NBA, they have half the teams making the playoffs. In this, 14 out of the 32 teams making the playoffs is a lot better than just 12. So I do like how they're doing this, especially because of wildcard teams. Having 3 wildcard teams is a lot better because of just how the playoffs are basically built. Anyways, you look at the current playoff picture. We have the NFC division winners would be Rams, Packers, Saints, and Washington. Now, of course, we're not going to be looking at the NFC East right here because nobody in the NFC East is playing for a wild card spot. They're all just playing for their division. And right now, Washington is on top. And what are they, 4-7? Washington is 4-7, and they're on top of their division. But you look at these wildcard teams right now. You have the Buccaneers, Seahawks, and Cardinals, who all are playing to win their division right now. Of course, right now they are with the wild card, but they are playing to win their division because that NFC West is stacked. And in the NFC South, when you go there, there is the Buccaneers and both the Saints. And then in the hunt, I would just put Bears and Vikings in the hunt at this point. At this point, I'm counting out all the other teams. I'm counting out the 49ers, Panthers, and Lions, all because of the same reasons. They are suffering with way too many injuries, and their schedule is too tough. There is no way the 49ers, Panthers, and Lions, with their injuries and with their schedule, can honestly make a playoff. And the only 2 teams in the hunt right now, I'm going to put Bears and Vikings. Bears, they have to turn things around. I said Bears, I do not think that they're going to be a very good team going forward. And as we've seen, they're coming off of 4 straight losses. The Bears are not looking good at all, but they can turn things around. I mean, that offense, if they just get if they get not Devin Singletary, if they get David Montgomery back, maybe that can change some things. They can change some things around on offense side of the ball because, of course, special teams and defense is already really good for the Bears. So I'm not going to count out the Bears, and I'm going to say just Bears and Vikings right now are looking for a playoff berth, and they're the only teams in the hunt. So you look at how the Vikings are going to have to make the playoffs. It all starts with winning these easy games. And I've said this already, and the Vikings coming off of another home loss against the Cowboys is very rough because now the Vikings have to... I would give them a 20% chance at the playoffs now. Last week, I was saying the Vikings, I really do think they're going to make the playoffs. I really did think that they were going to make the playoffs. Maybe I was getting too ahead of myself because they were coming off of 3 straight beautiful wins. All of the wins was executed very well. Defense was playing great. Offense looked totally complete. Dalvin Cook rushing for insane amount of yards, 2 great career games. And then the Vikings, of course, just fell flat against the Dallas Cowboys. And that's because of the defense. It was not the offense. It was the defense that game. And the defense has been holding us down this entire season so far. They've lost us 4 out of our 6 losses so far. Anyways, being 4-6 right now is really bad, especially when you look at last week, the Rams winning, and then it's just not looking good right now for the Vikings, but we can still make the playoffs. And that's why we're going to be talking about how the Vikings, scenarios where the Vikings can actually still make the playoffs. So it all starts with the NFC West. You look at the NFC West right now, there is 4 teams that look like they should make the playoffs. Of course, we're counting out the 49ers at this point because of their schedule and because of their injuries. I am counting out the 49ers. So outside of that, Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks all look elite. They're beating themselves up. They are beating themselves up. And Seahawks, we really right now have to cheer for the Seahawks because they have that doubleheader. They have that win against the Vikings so far, so they will get that edge, and they have the edge on the Vikings, so they will make the playoffs ahead of the Vikings. For that reason, we have to look at the Rams and we have to look at the Cardinals. Right now, the Cardinals are 3rd in that division, and we need to cheer against the Cardinals. We need the Cardinals to fall. We need the Cardinals to fall for the Vikings to make the playoffs. So when you look at that, right now, Rams and Seahawks likely both going to make the playoffs. Cardinals can really fall short. And for that reason, we got to cheer against the Cardinals. We don't only need the Vikings to win basically all of their next games. I mean, they can lose 1 or 2 and still make the playoffs. You look at the NFC South though right now. The NFC South has Saints, who right now are without Drew Brees. We can't outbeat the Saints right now. It's not possible. Saints already have 8 wins. I don't think there's any chance the Vikings can outbeat the Saints. Of course, we do play them, but still, I just don't think it's going to happen. Buccaneers, though. Tom Brady has thrown 5 picks in the last 3 games. The Buccaneers are not looking like a great team right now. What are they, 3 losses in a row? No, they did beat the Panthers. I forgot. So almost that. Or did the Panthers? I can't remember. The Buccaneers are just not playing well right now, though. The Buccaneers not at all are playing well. And for that reason, we can outbeat the Buccaneers too. We really can. Because of that NFC South, we play the Buccaneers, I think, week 14. I think it is week 14. Now, of course, the Vikings have an easy matchup this week against the Panthers, and then another easy one against the who do they play next? The Jaguars. And then I do think we play the Buccaneers after that. So we do play the Buccaneers. So, of course, Vikings will have to win that game. I've said already, I do not think it's going to happen because of how that Buccaneers defense is built. That Buccaneers defense is too good against the run for the Vikings to stop them. And the Vikings secondary is too young to stop all those guys on offense. So I don't think there's really any chance that the Vikings do outbeat the Buccaneers. But we have to talk it as a scenario because it's very possible. Because if the Vikings do beat the Buccaneers and the Buccaneers continue to play how they've played in the last few games, we can get a playoff berth over the Buccaneers right now because we could get that division, or we could get that win over them, and we could get that edge over the Buccaneers. So, of course, it's very unlikely that the Vikings do make the playoffs. I know last week I said that it's likely that I really did think it was going to happen because we played the Cowboys, and then after that we played the Panthers, and then after that we're going to play the Jags. Or we haven't played the Panthers yet, but you know what I'm saying. And then after that we have tough matchups after that. Of course, the Bears is a hard matchup again. We have the Buccaneers, we have the Saints. So we have some hard matchups as well, but we had to get that Cowboys win for the Vikings to make the playoffs. And I just don't see a scenario where the Vikings can get in the playoffs at 8-8 right now. It's possible. I mean, you look at the years ago, a lot of 8-8 teams could have made the playoffs if there was 7 teams going to the playoffs. This is too tough of an NFC list for the Vikings to make the playoffs at this point. I'm still giving it a 20% chance because the Vikings can turn things around. We have seen a lot of promise from this Vikings defense, and this Vikings offense is complete. This Vikings offense is stacked. Now, of course, with Kirk Cousins under center, it's not, I guess you can't say it's really complete, but it is great. I mean, we have 2 amazing wide receivers, 2 great tight ends, a 1-2 punch in the backfield. Our offensive line is better than it's been in the last 5 years. It's that defense that is holding us back at this point, and Kirk Cousins is holding us back at this point. And for that reason, do I think that the Vikings will make the playoffs? I'm going to have to go with no at this point. I hate to doubt my team, but I do think Vikings can get to 8-8, and making the playoffs at 8-8 this year is very rough. It is very tough because you look at Buccaneers, Cardinals, and Saints, and of course, also the Seahawks and the Rams. One of those teams has to completely fall short. They have to completely fall off. And honestly, that can still happen. I mean, Cardinals would only get 2 wins going forward, and I don't think it's going to happen, but it very well could happen. So we're going to talk about it as a scenario. The Vikings need to overtake either the Cardinals or the Buccaneers at this point. There's no other team I think it's going to happen. Because there's too many divisional games in the NFC West for the Vikings to overcome either the Seahawks or the Rams also. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I hate to admit it, but I do not think it's going to happen. I don't think Vikings will be able to make the playoffs. We're going to get to 8-8, and we're going to fall just barely short of the playoffs, and it's going to be rough. But it's very possible. And that's why we're talking about it as a scenario, because if the Vikings do beat the Buccaneers and they win this week, and of course they would win against the Jaguars, and then they beat the Buccaneers, that's where it all comes down to. But it all starts with winning these easy games. Vikings have to win this week, and they have to win against the Jaguars, and it shouldn't be tough at all. We are playing 2 of the easiest defenses in the NFL, and we have to just put up a bunch of points against these defenses the next 2 weeks. And then they go against the Buccaneers, and this Buccaneers game is going to be very important for the Minnesota Vikings and the Buccaneers. Both of these teams are going to be playing for a lot this game. And for that reason, also the Buccaneers play the Saints this week. Buccaneers have a tough schedule going forward. They have a very tough schedule, so it's very possible that we could overcome them too, if the Vikings do end up going 9-7. They can still end up going 10-6, but that's winning all the next games. And when you have a game against the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Bears, I don't think Vikings are going to be able to win all 3 of those. At best, we're going to lose only 1 of those. I don't know which one it's going to be, but we will lose 1 of those 3 games, and that will hold us just short of the playoffs. And that's my prediction. I don't think it's going to happen at this point because the Vikings are coming off of a loss against the Cowboys, but we have to talk about it as a scenario. I think those 2 scenarios are where the Vikings make the playoffs, is winning 3 weeks in a row and overcoming the Buccaneers, or Cardinals fall short of the playoffs. It's going to be one of those 2 scenarios if the Vikings do make the playoffs. Let me know what y'all think.